day. How about the planets? Where do they come from? And could any of them possibly be like Earth? There are galaxies everywhere.
Bienvenue au Cirque du Soleil.
Bienvenue and welcome to Cirque du Soleil, a sonic trip brought to you by Cirque du Soleil, where we redefine the boundaries of creativity with some of today's most forward thinkers, doers, and creators. My name is Michel Laprise. I'm the creative guide at Cirque du Soleil, also the lucky director of Kurios Cabinet des Curiosités. Kurios is, when we created that show, we wanted to expand the mind. And so this is why the main character is a seeker. And he discovers that in order to glimpse the marvels that lie just below the surface, we must first learn to close our eyes. Characters in the show are challenged to expand their perspectives, and so is the audience. When we created that show, we were very inspired by the second half of the 19th century. So Kurios was created with inventiveness in mind and to spread the idea that nothing is impossible. The show asks the question, what if, by engaging our imagination and opening our minds, we could unlock the door to a world of wonders? And that's what we're going to explore today. I'm going to be asking, how is space and time defined? How has curiosity played a role in creating and understanding space-time theories? And how will the images from the innovative James Webb telescope change our perception of reality? Hello, Dr. John Mather. Welcome to Cirque du Soleil.
Thank you for inviting me. This is going to be fun.
Yes, it will. So you contributed to so much of the world of science, like your Nobel Prize winning work on the Cosmic Background Explorer satellite, also known as COBE, C-O-B-E, that further established the Big Bang theory on the origin of the universe. COBE was also said to be the starting point for cosmology as a precision science by the Nobel Prize Committee. So you've clearly had a lot of achievements and successes. And I have to ask, what keeps you motivated or inspired to search for more questions and problems to solve?
Well, I am just curious. I want to know how everything works. I think I was born that way. But there's also a movement, a worldwide movement of people who want to do this together. So I work at NASA, and that's our job, to ask questions and build equipment to find answers. So that's my team sport.
You make me think that, you know, like at Cirque, we like to bring people from different countries together, and it's a really peace and love place. And even sometimes you have people from countries that are at war, and on our stage and in the backstage, people are together in peace. I'm really naive about science, but you're talking about people working together. Is there like big competitions between countries, or are the scientists really working together to advance the societies and our civilizations' understanding of things?
I think in the domain of pure science, people do definitely work together across national boundaries because that's the best way to go. We have friends everywhere. We talk to each other. We write papers. We read each other's papers across the world. And it's just how it's done these days. And perhaps it's how it was always done. The competition isn't so much with each other as it is with discovering new knowledge. How do you find it? We need all the help we can get. And it's been done this way forever.
Oh, it's so good to hear. How did curiosity and creativity help scientists understand or think about time?
That's one of the most tricky questions, because our understanding of time has changed over time. It used to be thought, until Einstein arrived, that time was a kind of absolute, that every place in the world and in every place in the universe had the same clock. And Einstein showed us, no, that's not true. So that was a shocking creative thought that he had to take. And he was forced into it by the measurements that we made. We measured that clocks are not absolute, so better find another story. So you mentioned earlier that this was happening at the end of the 19th century, early 20th century, when telegraphs and the railroad systems had been invented, and he needed to understand how to synchronize clocks across the entire railroad system.
When I was doing research for Kurios, I read that people started to be very precise about time at the invention of the railway system because, you had to show up when the train would.
So he was in the patent office and he was thinking about synchronizing clocks, and he had an idea. And it turned out to be what grew into relativity theory. So
I didn't know that.
That was a creative thought driven by a practical application.
In science, why is being curious so important? Could science exist without curiosity?
We are in a profession where this is rewarded, where the way you make progress is to think of something new or to find a mistake in something that someone has done before. So curiosity is basically the central force that makes us successful. Children are curious. Children want to know why and how about everything. But I think everyone wants to know how things work. And a scientist is a fortunate person who gets to keep on doing those things for a job, for a profession. And so here I am doing it.
How were you if I may ask, when you were like 5 or 7? Were you always asking questions to your parents? Well, I know all kids do that, but were you doing it more than us?
I don't know about asking my parents, but I very quickly was asking books. I had books when I was 6 or 7 or 8 about great scientists and mathematicians, and I heard about infinity, and I knew about Galileo and Darwin and the great discoveries that they made, and I thought, that is really exciting. I want to do that.
Do you feel that early you felt the calling?
I did.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. Of course, I can't have you here and not talk about the James Webb telescope. And I think being curious about what space looks like was one of the reasons why it was created. Maybe I'm being naive about that, but I would like to hear you about this whole process of the James Webb telescope.
Oh my goodness! Well, it's a long story.
That's right. We have time.
As soon as the Hubble telescope was launched, people were already planning, what do we do next? Because you could see the discoveries that Hubble was making, and you could see the discoveries that Hubble could not quite make because it didn't have the right capabilities. So a little book was published about 5 years later that says, please build us another telescope that can do different things. They said, please build something that can look back in time by looking at things that are far, far, far away, see things as they were when the universe was very young, because we'd like to know the entire sequence of events from what we call the Big Bang to now. How did the first stars and galaxies grow out of the primordial material? How did stars get formed today? How about the planets? Where do they come from? And could any of them possibly be like Earth, perhaps capable of hosting life? So those questions are still wide open. We've built the equipment they asked for, and now we're getting wonderful pictures and wonderful surprises from the equipment. And every day, more discoveries are being published.
And so are you working on the next iteration already?
The next telescope?
The next telescope, yeah.
Yes, of course. That's what I like to do, is to create new ways to observe things. So now that I've worked with a team to build the Webb telescope, what's the next thing? Well, another telescope that's even more powerful in some different way. They can do something that you can't do with the Webb, you can't do with the Hubble. You need something different. So the most challenging thing astronomers are pursuing now is, how about Earth? Are there Earths around other stars?
Okay.
And we imagine they surely must be, but we haven't seen them. We have seen lots of small planets around lots of small stars, and we have good reason to think that they're not like Earth, that they would have no atmosphere. Of course, we're going to find out soon if they do, but right now the expectation is, no, that's not a good place to look for life. So please build a telescope that can be capable of seeing signs of life elsewhere. So we can't visit with a robot to go to another star to pick up life. We can visit with a robot to see if something is on Mars or even a few other places in the solar system that are promising, but we can't go to another solar system except with light. So we can receive light and figure out what it means. So we would be looking for something like oxygen, which here on Earth only comes from living things, from plants and algae. Wouldn't be here at all, as far as we know, if the Earth were not alive. So let's do that. Let's hunt for oxygen and other signs of life on another planet.
I want to know, because we're all had a huge reaction when we saw the images from the James Webb telescope. What was your reaction the first time?
Number one is relief, because it works. It is so scary to build something that takes you half a lifetime to construct. And what if it doesn't work? Oh, it is so scary. It was tremendous relief that it works so beautifully, and it's working perfectly now. It's working so well that we think it might last for 20, 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Which is much more than we were originally hoping for.
Who were you with when you saw the first images? Because I guess it was a very, very important moment.
It was. We had a ceremonial event at the Space Telescope Science Institute where the engineers and some of the scientists who were working on focusing the telescope came together to all see the same image at the same moment.
Oh, wow.
And so we were there, and of course we had champagne because we were hoping it would be good. And it was wonderful because, as you know, the telescope is not in focus when it's launched. It's all folded up into a very small shape. And so after you unfold it, then you have to go through a process that takes a couple of months to get it set up so it gets a good sharp image. And the minute we got it, there were galaxies everywhere. We were surrounded by galaxies in every picture.
It's amazing. Huh? Wow. How big is the team behind that project?
Well, it took altogether 20,000 people from start to end.
Wow.
And there's something like 600 people were involved in setting it up to use it after it was launched.
Wow.
And now we have thousands of astronomers around the world are using it. We're taking pictures for them, and they're writing papers about the pictures. And so it's an immense effort.
It's so worth it. How did this expanded view, thanks to the James Webb telescope, change your view of the universe?
I've been very pleased to see that we had some wrong predictions about the early universe in particular.
Really?
We have ways to calculate and simulate what the early universe was like. Because we measured what it was like when it was very, very young with the Cosmic Background Explorer satellite and 2 more satellites that came after it. And so we said to ourselves, we should be able to predict how the first galaxies will grow. And we did. But the predictions are not in accord with observations. So the early galaxies are bigger and brighter and formed earlier than we were expecting. So we don't know what's different yet because we've just made these discoveries. So we will see soon enough that there was a mistake made somewhere, but we don't know where it is yet.
How do you integrate your intuition in your work? And do you sometimes try not to follow it? It's like, what's your relationship with intuition?
I think scientists are very intuitive because we like to build mental models. We have pictures in our minds and stories that we tell about how something works way out there. Then we think we're right because we got a good story. Then we can be led into error because we are so enchanted with our story. So that's why we have to also go measure things and observe things and see whether the story predicts the right answers. Intuition tells us where to look, but sometimes we are too trusting of our own belief. So we have to go look. If I read another book, it'll be called I Have to Measure.
I love that. So what is your intuition about life on another planet?
I feel pretty confident that there's life in many places. Evidence from planet Earth is that as soon as there was an ocean, there is signs of life. We have that from the fossil record, but life of the microscopic sort. So it took most of the history of the universe for us to turn up. So life like us is probably pretty rare. On the other hand, the universe is so large that rare doesn't mean zero. Rare just means it's far away. So we're working on the next thing, which is to see, are there places that are a lot like Earth? That is to say, Earth size, Earth temperature, orbiting a star like the sun with oxygen. That's sort of the next objective, to find places like that and see, are they common or are they rare?
And, talking about the James Webb telescope, still, how did this expanded view, thanks to that telescope, change your view?
My view of what we can accomplish has changed a lot. Because when we started, we didn't know we could do this mission. People laughed at me when I said we were going to do this project.
Really? Why?
Because it was too hard.
Too hard?
It was much too hard.
What was hard in it?
We had to invent 10 different new technologies to be able to build this observatory. We had to have better mirrors. We had to have better detectors. We had to get little amplifiers that would work at extremely low temperatures. Had to get something that would cool off one of the instruments to a temperature of 7 Kelvin, 7 degrees above absolute zero. We had to learn how to unfold the telescope. We had to learn how to focus it after launch. There were so many things we did not know how to do.
That's exciting.
So it was a huge accomplishment, and it was a very creative and intuitive path that we took. And by the way, we don't just say, I know how to do it. We say, we need to do this, and we ask the entire world for proposals. Okay, how would you do it? Oh, how would you do it? How would you do it? Send me a proposal and explain to me
that's how it
why we
happens?
should ask you to do that. Yeah, we do not say, I know how to do it.
Yeah.
We ask, how do you do it? And somebody answers.
Wow, it's fascinating because at Cirque du Soleil, we want to always make the impossible possible, and it's essential actually in the show Kurios. And I love the way you just said it. It's like we don't know how to do it, but we want to do it. What are we learning about the idea of infinity as we peer deeper now into space?
Yeah. So infinity is an interesting thing because people talk about it as though it was a thing. But the word itself means without end, without limit. So you can't get there because by definition you can't.
Yeah.
So we talk about infinity as a thing you should understand, but it really is an interesting surprise. The ancient Greeks knew about the idea that there could be no largest possible number. Whatever number you think of, there's always a bigger one than that. And you can prove it. Just add 1 to the number you said was the biggest. Well, obviously you were wrong, so there's no biggest number. We have the same concern about space and time. If you imagine you're somewhere way over there, can you go any farther? Well, why not? So space seems to be unlimited, that is to say infinite in space. We don't picture, and we don't see any sign in observation that there's an end to space. We have a similar question going back in time. If you go back in time, you can't go to an end. You can imagine yourself back to when the universe was very young, and you can imagine back about 13.8 billion years. And when you imagine back that far, then you say, well, the universe was very hot, very dense, very compressed. And then eventually you run out of imagination. You say, what could there be there before that? And we don't know. So, of course, we are not without ingenuity and intuition. We make up stories and draw calculations and formulas and say, well, maybe it was like this. But then we're getting back to those things which you were talking about where we can't necessarily know the answer. Maybe we can't measure anything that tells us. Before the Big Bang, we actually don't know what it means. When you imagine back in time, closer and closer to the earliest moments of the universe, you can't quite get past it unless you have a story about how could this extremely dense material have come from something else. So we don't have a good story. We have a lot of ideas, but none of them can be proven. So one idea is obviously, well, what if the universe is bouncing? That it was originally much bigger and then it collapsed and it bounced and came back out again. So that's the bouncing universe story. That gives you an idea of what was there before what we call the Big Bang. And there might be many others. We have theories that say there's a force called inflation, which causes the expansion. And in that theory, it's possible to have many universes erupting from some generic material that we don't really know, but maybe there are many universes and they're all expanding. And maybe they're not all expanding. Maybe ours is special in some way. So this is something that scientists speculate about. And right now, I'm not aware of any way you could test this question.
Wow.
Of course, we're interested. If you've got an idea, if anybody has an idea, then of course we'll look. Yeah.
If you have listened to this podcast, you have an idea, just please send it and we'll share it with everybody. In a minute, I'm going to continue this conversation with Nobel-laureate, American astrophysicist and cosmologist John Mather. Fans go first. Whether it's early access to seasonal deals or pre-sales, pick your tickets before everybody else. Sign up for Club Cirque today, and you'll be the first to hear about access to special events, pre-sales, and discounts. Take a look behind the curtain and enjoy up-to-date news on all things Cirque du Soleil, including shows, artists, and latest innovations. Visit cirquedusoleil.com to subscribe. Dr. Mather, we've talked a lot about how being creative and curious plays a role in science and helping us understand it. But I also wanted to talk about how infinite science feels and the influence that other creative mediums have on science. This is something that's very central in our show, Kurios, Cabinet of Curiosities. So I was wondering how you think that James Webb's telescope is changing how people perceive reality. You know, like we live a bit in a dark age, and I saw like such a beautiful reaction from people when the first images were released. Do you think about that a lot? The impact on like everyday life of people, like knowing that, you know, you just opened the curtains to so much beauty and expanded our view of the universe. How do you feel like your social impact on people, optimism or a perception about beauty, for example?
I am really thrilled to see how many people love our pictures, because they do tell us that there's a mystery out there, and how we got here is really a fascinating story, and we're working on it. So we're beginning to tell people more about our own origin story, and they're just beautiful. To me, they're just beautiful, the way that the colors have turned out, and they're meaningful to astronomers too. It's not just we played with the colors until they look pretty. They actually mean something to us, astronomers. And from those pictures, we tell you the story. How do the stars grow? How do the planets grow? What's in them? What are the chemistry of those little things way out there? So eventually we can draw you a lot more that tells the story of our own history. So to me, that's inspiring. And I'm just glad that other people think that pictures are pretty because they want to have them on the wall.
If you had ways to influence the education of kids, how would you do that? So we have more scientists, people who are really happy scientists, actually.
Yeah, so I think science is about discovering things yourself a lot, working with people to discover things. And it's not about reading a book full of facts. So I think science instruction would be best done by, here, play with these things, see what you can see what you can discover. Here's a microscope. Can you see something with it? Here's a telescope. What can you see with it? Here's something to watch. How about watching this animal grow? How about watching this plant grow? See what do they do. See if you can understand them. Can you tell what your dog is trying to tell you? Dogs are telling us something all the time, but we have a hard time figuring out what they mean. Yeah. They understand us better than we understand them.
Yeah, right. They read us so much better.
Yeah, so there's so much to discover, so much to know, and the pleasure is in the discovery.
So much so. Wow.
You know, in a way, the way I picture modern science is we're working on the infinite crossword puzzle. The crossword puzzle that goes in all directions. There's just an unlimited number of unknown little squares. And we, as scientists, we work on one square at a time. Sometimes we get a whole word at once. And then we go on to the next thing that we don't know about. So we gradually working out the puzzle of the universe. And what could be more exciting than that?
Wow. I want to thank John Mather for joining us today, John. It's been such an enlightening conversation, and we could continue for hours. You really stopped time, and it was such a pleasure to be sharing this episode with you. So thank you so very much.
Okay, Michel, a pleasure. Bye-bye now.
Join us for each episode as we delve into the themes and ideas that underpin Cirque du Soleil shows. Learn more about the roots of creativity and how to keep your eyes, mind, and heart open to new sources of creative inspiration. And remember, it can come from anywhere and anyone. Thank you so much for listening to Cirque du Sound. I am Michel Laprise. À la prochaine.
Cirque du Sound is produced by Cirque du Soleil with technical and story production by Jar Audio.
If you liked what you heard today on Cirque du Sound, please subscribe, comment, and leave a review.